There are places you travel to, and then there are places you disappear into. Where silence isn't empty, it's sacred. Where time doesn't pass, it pauses. Where you don't simply check in, you surrender. This isn't a hotel review. It's a confession. A recounting of a personal vanishing act. Because for 72 hours, I disappeared from everything I knew and found something I hadn't known I was missing. The whisper. It didn't begin with a brochure. No glamorous Instagram reel. No paid promotion. Just a name whispered across a candlelit table in Marrakesh by a woman who had spent her life chasing rare air. She looked at me and said, "If you want to feel what the world felt like before we ruined it, go here. But go alone." I didn't write it down. I remembered it. And months later, after too many airports, deadlines, and curated itineraries, I followed that whisper. It led me to coordinates, not a location, a possibility. Getting there, I flew commercial, then private, then smaller still, a twin-engine aircraft over mountains that had never known roads. And then the final leg, a helicopter, built not for luxury, but precision. Silent, low, ghost-like through the Andes. The pilot never spoke, just handed me a noise-canceling headset and nodded toward the horizon. Below us, rivers of ice, forests untouched, lakes without names. And then, like something from a dream, a silhouette in the distance, a structure that didn't rise from the land. It rested on it. One single lodge. No signs, no welcome mat, just quiet. When we landed, the chopper never powered down. I stepped out, and it vanished behind me. Just like that, I was alone. First impressions. There was no staff in sight, no lobby, no reception. Instead, a handwritten card on the stone table just inside the doorway. "Welcome back to the wild part of yourself." I stood there, half expecting someone to greet me, offer me a glass of champagne, say something about dinner arrangements. But there was only birdsong, and the faint crackle of firewood somewhere deeper in the lodge. My room wasn't a room. It was a window into another world. Floor-to-ceiling glass framed an alpine lake so still, I wasn't sure where the water ended and the sky began. Natural wool, patented metals, soft stone surfaces worn by hand. No television, no digital panels, no light switches, just flame-lit lanterns and the rhythm of day and night. A soft knock, a warm voice. "There's no itinerary, just listen." She placed a ceramic tea bowl in my hand. Smoke drifted from the surface, not from heat, but from the cedar branches steeped within. I didn't know it yet, but this tea marked the beginning of a quiet transformation. Day 1. Disconnection. The first morning, I woke not to an alarm, but to a shift in light. Sunrise spilled slowly across the wooden floor like liquid amber. Outside, mist crawled across the lake's surface in slow, deliberate swirls. There was no urgency, no program, only a carved wooden token on my table. Choose your pace. So I walked. Through moss-covered trails, past trees older than the nation I was born in. At one point, a silver fox stared at me across a stream, not afraid, just aware. I wasn't trespassing here. I was participating. I returned to the lodge by midday to find a floating wooden deck set with a single place setting. A chef, quiet, barefoot, placed a bowl in front of me. Trout poached in glacial water, wild greens, mountain mushrooms still warm from the earth. No menu, no options, only what the land had decided to offer that day. And somehow, it was perfect. Later that evening, I wrapped myself in a wool cloak and stepped into the geothermal spring carved into the rock behind the lodge. Above me, stars like I've never seen them, layered, infinite, ancestral. I soaked in silence for what could have been minutes or hours. The only time I checked was the time in my body. Day 2. Surrender. I had been told nothing was scheduled here, but that wasn't entirely true, because just before dawn, a soft flute echoed through the forest. A signal, and without thinking, I followed it. Up a ridge trail, past streams and low clouds, until I reached a stone circle. There, an elder waited, Mapuche, with eyes like the lake, still, deep, impossible to lie to. She placed a stone in my palm, obsidian, heavy, cold, real. No words were exchanged. She tied a red thread around my wrist, lit sage, let it burn, and simply looked at me. The wind moved through the trees like a language I had forgotten how to speak. This was not a treatment, it was communion. We returned in silence, and I felt lighter. Not just emotionally, physically, as if I'd set something down and left it there. That evening, dinner was served in a stone cave, lit by salt lamps and beeswax candles. The only other soul, a local musician who played one haunting song on a handmade harp. He finished, nodded once, and disappeared back into the night. No applause, no recognition, just presence. Day 3, stillness. I thought I might get bored. I didn't, because on the third day, the stillness became a texture, thick like velvet. Not a void, but a presence. I spent an hour watching a spider rebuild its web after a bird had broken it. I spent 2 more tracing the patterns in the grain of the lodge's wooden beams, each sourced from trees that had fallen naturally. There was a library here, circular, no windows, just firelight and leather-bound books from every era. I picked one at random, read it cover to cover. Later, I was invited, gently, never forced, to a private tea ceremony held on a floating dock just before sunset. The tea was prepared with snowmelt and wildflower honey. It wasn't about flavor, it was about attention. One of the retreat's philosophies was this: luxury is the ability to give something your full attention. In that moment, watching the steam curl upward as birds skim the surface of the lake, I understood it. Departure. I didn't want to leave, but I didn't need to stay, because something had changed, and I knew I could carry it with me. When I packed my bag, it was lighter than when I arrived. Not because I had lost things, but because I had released them. There was no final invoice, no printed receipt, just a handwritten note tucked inside my coat pocket. Come back, or don't. The wild remembers you now. The helicopter returned, barely a shadow in the sky. I stepped inside and rose into the clouds. Looking down, the lodge seemed to vanish into the forest. Not a building, not a business, but a living thing, breathing, watching, waiting. Afterward, it's been weeks since I returned. The noise came back, the screens, the traffic, the urgency. But something's different. I check my phone less. I listen more. And sometimes, when the city gets too loud, I close my eyes and remember the taste of glacier water, the weight of obsidian in my palm, the feel of silence, not as absence, but presence. Luxury isn't excess, it's access to yourself, to the planet, to moments that don't need to be posted to be real. I didn't just visit a retreat, I vanished into one, and I returned more whole than I arrived. So if you're tired, if you've forgotten how to feel your own breath, disappear. Just for a while. The world will wait. Subscribe to Luxe Quest and let your next adventure begin.